chilling, beautiful, innovative, violent, and most importantly, a tour de force in what remaking a video game can hopefully look like for any future remakes to come. Those are all words I would definitely use to describe the Dead Space remake. I finished this game fully through the other week in the long 11 hours it took, just like how I finished the original 2008 version in 11 hours for the first time this past December. I also actually just recently finished my second playthrough, like quite literally an hour right before I recorded this video. I played the game for a second time through on the New Game Plus just to go back and see if I could pick up any of the extra upgrades and schematics and any pieces of loot that I missed out on the first time, so I did that as well. After having played the original game in preparation for this remake, I now really do see why a game like this not only deserved a remake, but showcased a true vision for what many gamers can hope to see in the future for any other old video game that does get remade. I am here today to give my thoughts on this remake. I really love this game, and I'm not the only one who shares that same opinion, whether you are somebody who is a longtime Dead Space fan of the franchise or even a newer player who's never played any of these games like myself, at least when that was the case a month ago. I played both the original game and Dead Space 2 to see what both were like so that I could prepare myself for this remake. And no, sorry Dead Space 3, I did not play you. You got the short end of the stick on this one. But don't worry, one day I might go back and give you a try. But again, that is the point of this video, which is to express my love for this game in every way. So much of this game, in my opinion, really does live up to that original version. And if I had to take a stab at a percentage of how much this game takes from the original versus how much was changed, I would say that the remake is about 80 to 85% of what the original game was. Yes, there are many things that were brought over, but at the same time, there were also a bunch of things that were changed, of which, in my opinion, actually probably made the game better, but also probably didn't do too much to add to anything at all, which, to be clear, is not a bad thing. I did find that there were certain things that they did that I wasn't the biggest fan of. But talking on those positives, I think there really are a lot with this game. Obviously, it doesn't go without saying, but graphically this game is just so beautifully made and has been given a lot of care with regards to the amount of detail that is shown throughout each of the 12 chapters of the story and gameplay. If it wasn't obvious enough before the game had even released with how much behind the scenes they showcased to the public, you can really tell that Motive Studio, who is the developer behind the game, really cared to make sure that they remade the game as best as possible. And I'll say this right now, and I don't care if it's too early to say this, but not only would I trust Motive Studio to remake the second Dead Space game, but I would also trust the studio to make whatever kind of game that they wanted to. In terms of the status that the studio has as a developer, before this remake came out, they had only made 2 games, or at least had some level of involvement in 2 games. That being Star Wars Battlefront 2, where they helped out with the campaign, and then with Star Wars Squadrons, where they were the main developer on. I played both those games, and I think they had a decent start to their track record, since I did enjoy playing both. Here with the remake, they are showcasing that they could be one of the bigger up-and-coming studios that should be getting all the attention. So I'd be curious to know down below in the comments if you guys think that at this point, giving them the reins to remake the second game, which some have said is the best in the franchise, is worth doing. But getting back to the main point, graphically the game looks really, really good. I love everything that they did with making sure that it looked as good as possible. One of the biggest, if not the biggest, topics of conversation around this game that I think lots of people hopefully will talk about more as time goes on is how this game improved upon certain things that the original game might have either suffered in or didn't do as well as they did here. For one, and to this day I'll stand by this opinion, but the lighting and atmosphere of the original Dead Space is so dulled down by the lighting to the point where I don't even know if I consider the original to be a true horror game. Here in the remake, they made the lighting so much better, and I feel like it was more lived in as a horror experience. I just really dislike how the original game just didn't make it feel like you were in any danger because of the fact that you could see in just about every place that you went to. I might be indifferent to that than other people, but that's just how I see it. If I'm not mistaken, the zero gravity system in this game is probably going to be the one thing that just about every person who's played this game will agree upon, in the sense that it is infinitely better than it was in the original game. Again, you can tell that Motive Studio took inspiration from Dead Space 2's version of zero gravity, where you freely have the ability to fly around yourself wherever you want. The original game basically forced you to do one type of motion and you weren't allowed to fly around, and listen, I'm no scientist, but I can tell you right now that that is not physically how that would ever work. If any of you have ever seen any of the videos of the astronauts at the space station and how they do checkups outside the station, it basically looks like that. So I really do like the fact that they pulled from like real life astronauts and how they do their spacewalks at the space station. That's almost a good segue because it leads to another smaller change with regards to the asteroid level of the game, where you have to shoot down the asteroids from damaging the Ishimura. A very nice change to a mission that I've seen a lot of people say is a much better version than the original mission. You even have a much better improvement on a character in the game like Dr. Mercer, who is the main human villain and one of the head unitologists aboard the Ishimura. This version of that character is significantly more menacing and less cartoony than the original, and almost much more well acted. They got a good actor to play him in Farhan Tahir, who you probably have never heard that name of before, but you've definitely seen his face in many different films. Films such as the very first Iron Man, where he plays Raza, the head of the Ten Rings. He's in the first 20 minutes of the original 2009 Star Trek film with Chris Pine. He's in a Matt Damon movie called Elysium from Neil Blomkamp, and also in one of my favorite guilty pleasure films in the original Escape Plan movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. He really gives levity to this character and makes him way more better than the original version was. Although I will say this is not his fault, but whoever worked on the character model for his character needed to do, I don't know, make his mouth move when he was speaking. The first time I played the game, I don't know if I'm the only one who got this, but the first time you meet him, his mouth literally doesn't move when he talks, and that kind of took me out of the scene, but again, that's not the actor's fault. Now, I definitely would be doing myself a disservice if I didn't talk about the necromorphs, the weapons, and also the suits, which are very vital to the Dead Space IP. The necromorphs are exactly what you want to see. They are scary, and they are violent, and especially very, very violent when you are killing them. Again, the amount of detail that they went to here with what they look like when you are killing them is gruesome and gory. No YouTube channel is safe from the new YouTube policy when trying to avoid that level of violence. Of course, you are not getting that level of violence if you are not using the correct weapons. The weapons in the game are good and all, but I think here in the remake, the weapons just feel so much more better to use and so much more fun to fire and kill with. Each gun in this version just feels like it has so much more of a personality and also just carries more weight when killing the necromorphs. They did a really good job, and that was one of the most important areas to get right with this game. Unfortunately, one of the areas I do think that they faltered in was with those suits. To be clear, I don't want my words to be taken out of context. I think the suits themselves by design look really cool in this franchise. However, that being said, it felt like the remake didn't really do anything to make each new suit you get stand out from one another. With the original game, every time you upgraded it, it did change a certain look of the suit, with that be through the color or through the actual look itself. You might get an extra line of light on the face mask, or you get an added armor plating. Here in the remake, every time you upgrade your suit, it just looks like the same suit over again, and that really bummed me out because the level 6 military suit, which of course is the coolest suit in the game, in my opinion, does look way better in this version than the original game, in my opinion, again, which I'm very glad that they got that right. The military suit is one of the coolest things I have ever seen in a video game in my entire life. One of the biggest things that they also did change was completely recharacterizing Isaac Clarke, the main character of the game, who you play as. Not only is his character model completely changed to fully embrace the voice actor of Gunnar Wright, but in this version, they gave him a voice. Having now played the game twice, I would have to say I think his character is so much better here. For one, I now care about him a lot more as a character, and at the same time, he's just also written very well to the point where his dialogue just feels very much like his character. If anyone here has actually played Dead Space 2 as well, you'll know that he also kind of sounds a lot similar there as well. And speaking of characters, let's talk about the ship itself, which is now been turned into a character more than it was in the original game. The Ishimura in this game has definitely transformed itself even more to the point where it is now a free-form level of transportation for you to go wherever you want, whenever you like. Not only does this give you the ability to go back and look for a lot of loot that you might have missed with the help of the New Game Plus, but again, it's just also another new and interesting way to add levity to the game. Now, if there's one thing that I definitely think doesn't change a whole lot here with this game is the story. Now, There are a few changes, but overall, there's nothing too dramatic that I found that really redefines the story. And even so, it wouldn't matter all that much because, again, this is a remake. The very definition of a remake is to make something again or differently. One part of the story that I found was not as good as the original, in my opinion, even if it was different, was how they handled the death of Hammond's character. Instead of going out fighting the brute necromorph, he instead sacrifices himself at the hands of Chen's necromorph in the most weird way possible while making a sacrifice to help steer the story along. Again, you can take either version with which one you like. I just found that this one was not as good. And I think the last thing that is definitely of note to the conversation about this with regard to the game are the boss fights. The boss fights in this game are a significant step up from the original in the sense that they are definitely a lot more challenging and also really do make you do a lot more. The Hive Mind final boss specifically especially adds more to it than just you avoiding its arms from slamming into you. He now shoots his explosive spores at you as landmines and squirts acid both as a blocking mechanism for you to move around. I like this addition and it makes it a lot more challenging, which is good for a boss fight no matter which difficulty you're playing it on. The very last thing that I'll say that doesn't really have anything to do with the game, but also kind of does, is with regards to some of the people out there online who have said that this game is quote-unquote political in some form or fashion. First and foremost, I want to say this right now, and I want everyone to really try their best to moving forward with using critical thinking if you hear something like this. It just feels like nowadays you'll see any one person, especially on social media, try their best to get attention and throw the word political at something if they don't like something that they see. There is nothing inherently about this game at all that is political, and for some people to see it that way, I think it's just trying to get attention and also cater to having an opinion that they think it's going to give them good grounds to have on. I've experienced a lot of different entertainment media in my life, and a lot of entertainment media. Lots of it has had political leanings and meanings inside of it, and lots of it has not. We really need to move forward into a state of society where we are able to have conversations and be more open about something and really break things down without just speaking to the sky with no way to back it up. At the end of the day, this is a video game, and the gameplay experience is what comes first, and that part of the game is awesome, and it doesn't really take away from the fact that if there were other things that were going on in the game that some might think are quote-unquote political or might distract them from wanting to play the game more, which I find completely ridiculous, but even that would just be my opinion. But again, so many people love this game, and for some out there who might say that this game is political, I cannot for the life of me even remotely get close to understanding that at all, because the game is not political. It's not even remotely close, and you have to put that opinion aside. It just doesn't make any sense, especially if you played the game multiple times now. But other than that, I think that's really all my thoughts for this game. I know that was a lot for a game like this that I really love, but it was important for me to get out everything that I feel for it. If there's anything I missed, please be sure to let me know down below in the comments, and please do comment down below what your thoughts were on the remake and how you felt about it, and if you agree or disagree with some of the things that I said, because it would really help me stem a conversation with you all, especially if you have played the game already. If you did enjoy this video and would like to see more gaming videos from my channel, be sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe to my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. I love making videos like this, and so this is just another new video game in the line of video games for me to play, and so there's a lot more to look forward to, especially in 2023 for me to play. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your days. Be safe out there. Have fun gaming on whatever you might be playing, whether it's this game or anything else. And this is Orion, signing out.